Coming to you from beautiful Flagstaff, Arizona, this is the Drinking Horn Meadcast. Join us as we take a deeper dive into mead and mead culture.
Sure.
I said, are you ready to record?
Sure.
I can't hear you, Cleveland.
Sure.
Oh, now I kind of heard you.
All right, I love the energy.
Welcome, everybody, to episode number 12 of the Drinking Horn Meadcast.
Meadcast. It's holy shit, number 12?
Number 12.
Wow.
Yeah, lucky number 12.
Is it?
That's what they say, right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a full moon tonight. Is that?
Ooh.
Isn't it? Or is it tomorrow?
Who cares? That's kick-ass because tomorrow's Halloween.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the day before Halloween.
It is. Some say the 30th.
Or Samhain.
It's the Dirty 30. Wait,
Samhain.
what?
Samhain.
Ladies and gentlemen, Evan is having himself a little
Do you guys smell toast?
mental episode there. No, I believe you're trying to talk about some like old Norse traditional...
Yeah. That's like where Halloween originated from.
Oh, can you tell us that story real fast?
I don't know. You might know it better than I do, it sounds like. Uh-oh.
No,
that's
I don't
not the
even
face of knowing.
I don't even know the word you just said.
No, yeah, Samhain. So it's Samhain, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong for everybody. And yeah, so it's the original Halloween. That's my extent of the knowledge on it.
Look forward to a future episode, probably before next year's Halloween. I would like to actually, do some of the heathen holidays, if you will.
Yeah.
Heathen's greetings.
Heathen's greetings. That's fantastic. You'll make no friends with that, Nick.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Wow. Okay, we're off to a blistering start about our subject material today. Today is not about heathen holidays or not about Norse tradition. It is about something that is actually kind of important.
Yeah, like really, really important and like ongoing, which I think is, we're going to save that part for the end though.
Yeah. Stay tuned. No, this is a subject that actually could have to do with national security, national food security.
Absolutely.
And so this episode, if you haven't looked at the title yet, which would be really weird because when I look at podcasts, I definitely look at the title of the episode. But we are talking about fake honey or funny honey or honey laundering.
Yeah, all of those. They're all different categories of a similar problem. Breaking news today. Honey laundering with Sean Connery. I don't know why that's my only voice.
I don't know, but I'm out of breath. It is Sean Connery. He's always with us.
He is, in spirit.
Even though he's not dead yet.
Not dead yet. But his living spirit is with us.
Well, we both grabbed
I'm
our
not dead
mead.
yet.
We both he turned into little Sean Connery running across the table.
I was thinking of the... I know we're off to a wicked good start.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Either people are laughing their heads off or we've been turned off of every radio.
And no followers. Shit.
That's okay. My mom will still listen.
That's right. We got our moms. They're still listening.
When we said cheers to Sean Connery, we both grabbed our glasses. What's in our glasses today, Mr. Evan Anderson?
It is a delightful, very fruity smelling, red to the eyeball sort of deliciousness. Nick is not coughing because of coronavirus or the mead.
Good stuff.
It's because of how hilarious I am.
Yes.
And so it's cranberry is what it is. That was the long way of getting around to it. It's a seasonal. It just came out last week. Mm-hmm. We double batched this one because a single batch of cranberry just ain't enough.
Yeah. That's your fault out there, listeners.
Right. Drinking up all the cran.
And we love it.
We love it.
Yeah, we did a double batch of this cranberry. It is our fall seasonal, comes out in October. Already came out in October. So if you are listening to this in the near future, maybe jump online, drinkinghornmeadery.com and grab yourself a bottle or two. Or if you're in the Flagstaff or anywhere in Arizona, not anywhere in Arizona, but some places in Arizona, you can grab a bottle of cranberry mead.
We're working on you, Kingman. Northwest route, we're working on you.
Yeah. And shipping, you grab some bottles, have it shipped to you. That could be, nice too.
Yeah. Nice little gift. Get it for you, get it for somebody else. Give the gift of mead this season.
You know what other gift of mead you can only get through shipping or coming to the mead hall?
Root beer?
You're right. Ding, ding, ding. That's right.
I'm a winner.
Yeah.
I'm a winner.
Yeah, root beer. Well, while supply, I'd say while supplies last because
There's a half a chance by the time this comes out, root beer's gone.
there is.
It's down to a handful of kegs and a couple dozen cases, and it'll be gone.
Would you say there's a 30% chance that it could be gone?
I'd go up to 60.
Oh, well,
It depends on how fast you edit.
you just ruined my segue.
Damn it. I would say it's at least 30%.
Well, that's interesting because today's talk about fake honey, there is 30%, it's estimated worldwide that 30% of honey out there is adulterated.
Yes. And it can be adulterated in a number of ways. I think when the studies that I was looking at, they were saying 33%. When they're talking adulterated, they are talking that it is not necessarily 100% real honey.
Yeah.
That is not the honey laundering, which we'll get into, but this is just straight up either fake honey or they've cut it with something.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a handful of different ways that they do it. It's kind of like there's an evolutionary arms race going on between people trying to sell fake honey and people trying to catch people selling fake honey.
Yeah.
And we're losing.
Yes, it's an uphill treadmill battle. And you're right. Yeah. We'll talk about this, but yeah, I think we'll just leave it at that for right now. An evolutionary arms race of, the bad guys and the good guys in this case. And so, we're going to talk about all these different ways that honey can be adulterated and become fake in quotes. And get out to the consumer. The first thing I wanted to just kind of touch upon is that honey's not alone in, as everybody knows, honey's not the only thing that's faked or counterfeited.
This honey is only the third most faked food.
Yeah. Well,
Did you see what number 1
there.
and 2 were? Did you find that in your studies?
In 2 of the articles I read, they said that it was the third most faked, but they never told me what the other ones were. You found out?
Milk and olive oil.
Milk.
What?
Oh, yes. You know what? That totally makes sense.
Olive oil, I totally get it. Like, I totally understand. I'd be curious to know what they use instead of olive oil. They just sell you some palm oil and lie to you. But milk, how do you even fake milk?
How are you pronouncing that word right now?
Milk. Milk.
Are you pronouncing it M-E-L-K?
Milk. That's the New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
It's milk, man.
Yeah. Yeah, they talked about, in one of the articles, they talked about an enzyme that they use to create the milk, which somehow replicates cow's milk. And so I think that's probably what it ends up as is fake milk that way. That
can't be a very like cost-effective way to fake milk. You know what I mean? Like a lot of those enzymes, and I know this because I was just talking with our filter guy who helps us figure out our filtering process so that we don't have to use the preservatives. But he was talking about a company that he was working with that does enzymes, and a liter of these enzymes can be worth as much as like 10 grand. Whew. Yeah. So like, I mean,
how do you thought mead was expensive?
Right. Because it's all got to stem from some sort of like economic inspiration. Should I call being greedy economic inspiration?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's other reasons, I guess, to fake things, but
yeah. Once you get that process down, maybe. I mean, the thing is, when it boils all down to the nitty gritty, if it's not making someone more money the way that they're doing it, they're not going to do it. So somehow, some way,
it's got to be cost effective somehow.
It's got to be, yeah. And so
fake milk.
We'll talk about the cost effectiveness and the economics of fake honey. Here as well. But yeah, milk and olive oil, they did talk about the USDA, we'll get into that too. I just keep saying we'll get into it, and then we're going to end the episode and people will be like,
they never got
to anything.
Don't take notes on us.
Yeah. But yeah, things get counterfeited. So olive oil, milk, we all, know about like the fake, like designer bags or...
Ooh, fake wine.
Fake wine?
Yeah, that's a whole, like, it's not necessarily fake, but they'll say, this was one of the Benjamin Franklin bottles. And it's amazing because there's been like, 100,000 Benjamin Franklin bottles sold.
Yeah, he made a lot of wine.
He made an awful lot of wine, way more than he thought he did, way more than he had any physical capability to do so. It's amazing.
Yeah, that ties into something we'll talk about later about, about fake honey. It all comes up. It's all coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Right after this. We're back. I don't know who our sponsor was, but hopefully you guys enjoyed that little commercial.
Yeah.
And so, so things counterfeited. We got all these things. We got, like I said, designer bags, olive oil, milk. You've got the Kobe beef industry. People would say that their beef is Kobe, and it wasn't really. Kona coffee. There are, thousands and thousands of dollars that are lost, or not lost, but, in litigation and such because of Kona coffee. People claiming that their coffee is Kona. And selling it, and then you look at the amount that's in the market compared to what Kona can actually produce with the Kona coffee beans.
For folks that don't know, Kona coffee has to come from that specific island, and I believe like a specific reach within the island or something as well, right?
Yeah,
like
I really think it comes out. It's a type of bean too. It's a patented bean.
Yeah. Oh, it's a specific
like plant.
Yeah.
Like
patented
hybrid
plants
or whatever. Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, so lots of things have been counterfeited, and honey is just one of them. It comes down to really how easily things can be counterfeited. If you can make something look like the real thing, then people are going to be fooled and they're going to buy it.
Totally, which is a huge issue we're going to get into for sure.
Yeah.
Later in the podcast.
Yeah. And if you guys are listening and you want to fast forward, you can download a fast forward to the important stuff app. Just go on to Bing and
search for it there. You'll find it.
Yeah. Go to Bing.
Eventually.
Yeah. All right. So let's start in the beginning. Defining honey. Defining honey is it's maybe impossible in the sense that a lot of people will have their own definitions and disagree on certain things. And you may think, how can you disagree about honey? Bees go to the flowers, they make the honey, you put it in a jar. Well, there's a lot of things that can happen from the time that it comes out of the honeycomb to the time it gets put into the jar. But when asked by beekeepers, they asked the FDA, can we define honey? Can we make it's called a commercial item description of honey? The FDA said simply they're not going to do that. And they referred to Webster's dictionary definition of honey, which I'll read it right now, is a thick, sweet, syrupy substance that bees make as food from the nectar of flowers and store in honeycombs.
Which seems pretty straightforward.
It seems like it.
Yeah, but it's not.
No.
And I think that it's easy to look at something and be like, oh, we should have really clear definitions of what this is. But like we really don't. Right? Like ask someone to define a really good definition of what exactly life is, right? Or ask somebody, there's a lot of little things that when you boil it down to their most basic building blocks, it's really, really hard to slap a label on that building block.
Yeah. Well, because we either mentally or actually physically change that item that you're talking about in so many different ways. And so one of the major things about that definition of honey that people will start to have issue is comes when filtering can occur.
Yes.
And so actually, should we take one step back and talk about heat?
Yeah, I think so.
Does heat come before filtering?
I think in general it would, because they would end up like a lot of times. And yeah, let's start with the heat.
Okay.
Well, let's start. Can we start maybe even further back with the word raw?
Oh, yeah.
All the way back to that. Because I think, like you said, the problem is that like definitions are not well defined, and the FDA has pretty much said, whatever y'all want to do, just go ahead and do it, which is part of what's kind of led to this problem. I think the base of a lot of these issues goes back to a lack of definition for honeys. Now, that can be really nice for an individual producer because it means you don't have to have FDA approval to slap a label that says this is clover honey, or this is orange blossom honey, or this is raw honey, right? And so it's that there's another word, the raw is another one that is not well defined. Like if I think of raw honey, I'm going to think of a couple of things, and it's, obviously like not filtered, not heated, and nothing added to it. Now, and that's where like, so the temperature is important. Do you want to start with the Maillard effect and temperature of honey and everything?
Sure. Yeah. That'd
Maillard
be
reaction.
Cool. We'll get a little sciencey on it.
Maillard,
that's a duck.
Yeah. Well, it is duck season. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah. The Maillard reaction.
Yeah. Which occurs like, you were thinking of it mostly in like malt and grain. I was thinking of it in honey. And when I was looking it up, because I didn't even know how to pronounce this word before the research, it was referred to also in like when you cook a meat, like that browning of the flesh or browning of whatever. It doesn't have to be flesh. It can be sugar. It can be whatever is the Maillard effect. Now, when if you like have an old fruit, that would be the same sort of thing, right?
Well, it's specifically
like when it browns out.
We can talk about browning out some other time, another podcast. But the Maillard reaction really is the chemical change of caramelization, and so it's denaturing of certain proteins that do end up releasing sweetness and adding color to it. So I don't know about the ripening of fruit if that's a Maillard reaction.
It just made me think of it because it's not necessarily heat.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure
you can get the Maillard reaction over time in older honeys though, without the heat.
All right.
So like an older honey will start to slowly, like as it crystallizes, like that's what we know of as like the short term, like for honey. If you age it even longer than that, like a couple of years, it'll start to get dark over time too. Okay. And they were describing, and I could be wrong on this, but they were describing that as Maillard reaction as well.
Cool.
The darkening over time, but it's not from heat. It's from the acid and low pH that honey has.
Yeah, and we all know that chemical reactions occur always. It's just a matter of how long, and we can add accelerants. We can add enzymes to increase it.
Heat can be an accelerant.
Heat can do it, but time can as well. So cool. Hey, learning stuff here on the Drinking Horn Meadcast, or maybe you're learning false stuff. I don't know. We're talking about Maillard reactions over here. But either way, there are people that heat their honey to a certain temperature that is what you would consider okay, but then there's a point where it's not okay. And
above 100?
And why would they? Okay, first talk about why they would heat it in the way that's good and why they would heat it in a way that's bad.
So you harvest a lot of your honey in the fall when you do get honey flows in the spring and stuff, but you end up harvesting a fair amount of it in the fall. In the fall. In the fall. Mead hall. In the fall. I was just thinking about it because of our zombie march that we have tonight. But anyway, so you would harvest in the fall, and a lot of times like you would store it in one, you would extract it from the honeycomb, and then you store it in buckets, store it in whatever. Sometimes before you get a chance to deal with it a whole lot. And in the process of getting the honey out of the comb, it helps if that honey is not like 50 degrees, right? So if you harvest a bunch of boxes from your bees and they're sitting there in your garage where they're nearly freezing and you haven't gotten time to get to them or whatever, it's impossible to extract if it's that cold. So you have to bring them up to a temperature that's high enough to make it easy enough to get the honey out of the cells, as well as spinning it. And then filtering kind of goes into the same sort of layer actually, where there's like, it's not necessarily well-defined, but for me, it's well-defined for myself and for our company and the quality of honey that we're going after. But like, we don't want anything to be filtered. Now that's not saying like, even our honey does go through, it gets heated below 100 and it goes through a very rough filter, more of a grate than a filter, I would say, especially when we're talking about like foods, because it's just to collect like, bee parts and honey, bee parts and wax and wood, rocks. Whatever gets stuck in there. You know what I mean? If you're harvesting a lot of boxes,
fake eyelashes.
Yeah. We get a lot of those. A lot of those. You wouldn't believe how many.
Yeah. So that is, anytime you separate something, you're filtering it in a sense. But
right. So that's another hard word where defining it is trickier than it seems, because filtering on that level is like filtering through a grate. Mm-hmm. But then filtering on some of the levels that we found rolling across stuff in the research is that's a whole different level. Yeah.
And I saw it a lot of time. Actually, they would take that next step and they would call it ultra filtering. And so I don't know, there could be I'm sure that the manufacturers and everything have these different definitions, and there's different microns and all that stuff, or like inches.
That's what I would be curious about, would just be porosity of it.
Yeah. So I'd say no beekeepers, no honey purists. Maybe there's a couple guys living in rock caves somewhere who would have a problem with it, but with filtering in the sense of removing large debris.
Yes.
And we're talking large debris because our honey comes to us raw and we still get bee parts every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still and chunks of wax and all that stuff. It's like probably twice the size of like your window screen, I bet, is about what it goes through. Okay. I guess it's bigger than that because we still get a lot of big chunks in there and stuff. So.
Yeah. So the honey needs to be heated in order to get off of the comb for it to be extracted from the
just for
honeycomb.
Viscosity, all viscosity value.
And that's about what temperature?
So that's where another one of those hard definitions, but like I think the general consensus at this point is if it's below 100, it's still considered raw honey.
Okay.
Which makes sense to me because the honey is going to be deposited, stored, blah, 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 at 95 degrees is about the running average temperature inside of a beehive. So if you're keeping it between 95 and 100, it's not a huge difference. And I think something, we kind of glanced over it, but part of the reason that the heat is so big of an issue with honey is because of honey's, antiseptic, antibiotic, inflammatory, all of its awesome hipster anti qualities. A lot of those come from bacteria that is found in the gut of the honeybee and then ends up in the honey itself, which is also why it stores for so long. And so if you heat it up, you end up killing all those fantastic properties. And all of a sudden, you cook it to 120 degrees and you have sugar syrup. You still have honey, but it's dead.
Yeah.
It's not living anymore. Whereas honey is a living thing. Breathing, I guess, really, damn near. It's raw honey is chock full of bacteria.
Yeah, chock full of bacteria.
Chock full.
See that on the outside of a honey.
You're chocked full of bacteria.
I think so. We are more bacteria cells than we are human cells.
Oh my gosh, the poop thing.
The poop thing.
When you take a bowel movement, it was between half and 3/4 of the weight of your bowel movement is actually bacteria.
Awesome.
Yeah, that blew my mind. We're just weird donuts filled with bacteria, man. You know what I mean?
We're just, plasma with a hole in the middle.
Whoa, it's crazy.
So that's one good reason or an okay reason to heat honey is to get it extracted off the comb. Otherwise, it'd be very, very hard to do.
Right, which is it's unnatural, you know what I mean? Because you're taking that honey and leaving it somewhere where it would be colder than it would ever naturally be, and then you have to warm it back up. So just saying, it's human intervention.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We want to get that honey, though.
I want that honey.
Yeah. So there's going above 100 degrees, why would someone do that, and what does that do?
Well, you can pasteurize your honey that way, for sure. If you're worried about some sort of a contamination risk, which you would only be worried about if you already have crappy honey, basically. Because otherwise you don't need to pasteurize it. It should be fine unless you've watered down the honey somewhere along the way, which was some of what people were faking, right? With the fake honey, sometimes it was just watered down, which is how can you sell honey? If you water it down, and I've bought honey places from people on street corner kind of stuff, where the honey just runs inside of this little jar, bubble just bottom to top if you're flipping it, you know what I mean? It's moving, and it's this is not, if I left this out in the sun for a few days, the jar would probably explode because it's fermenting inside of there because they watered their honey down. You don't have to water down honey much for it to start fermenting.
So that's a great point there too. And that can happen with people who have the best intentions. They can have too high of a moisture content in their packaged material. I actually heard that very recently about the testing of some number of jars of honey at a farmer's market, and they tested it for fermentation for alcohol, and some big percentage of them, half of them or something like that. And it was no big amount. It wasn't probably less than 0.5% of alcohol, but their packaging, the way they treat it, how exposed it was, all this had added moisture content to the honey enough to have some of it ferment.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They could be impatient beekeepers too, because a bee, the nectar, it gets refined and dehydrated some 7 times, I think, on average or something inside of the bee gut and back out. So after they collect it from the flower, they deposit it in the honeycomb, and then they eat it back up and put whatever they put into it inside of their gut, and then they put it back in, and they're stripping water out of it the whole time as they're doing this. So they could have been that they got honey that had only been messed with by the bees 4 times or something, and they have to do it relatively quickly. And it's their own bacteria that keeps it from fermenting in between while they're doing this inside of the cells, because they'll pull it out, put it back in, pull it out, put it back in. And so it could be that you get honey too early, because the ideal moisture content for honey is below 17%.
Yeah.
For finished honey.
And what you're saying there what you're saying there is actually something that they'll do. Some of these countries and beekeepers in these countries will do is they will pull the honey early, like you just said, which causes the bees to work harder to go get more honey. And it's not finished. Right. It's not dried out, but that was something that's kind of interesting. Put that in my head about how I read that, they would pull that honey early and cause the bees to have to make more honey. And it's kind of kind of cute, but not in a good way. Like thinking all these tired bees, like they're overworked,
right? Stripping that honey back. They're like, oh,
yeah,
I wasn't even done with that.
Go back out. Yeah. Okay, so heating honey. So that's raw. We had a question from a viewer wondering, and I think you pretty much answered this. What's the difference between raw, unfiltered, and oil?
Well, and what I wanted to get into too is that there is no legal definition of raw from the FDA.
Okay.
You can slap raw on the side of your honey, and nobody is going to be able to do anything to make you take that off because there is no legal definition of it. With the mead, because it falls under wine federally, all the labels have to be pre-approved. All of the language is checked over by the feds, and we have to make sure we're in compliance with a whole number of codes of federal regulations. But for honey, there isn't that. And like I appreciate that on some level because of the lack of just letting business be business. But at the same time, like, look at what that has created. Mm-hmm. And because of the lack of oversight in it, the lack of testing, lack of infrastructure for that sort of stuff, it's become a problem.
Yeah. The USDA is a little bit, I don't even know if I can use the word stricter or more strict than the FDA, but at least they've got a start on it. So you can have USDA grade A, B, C, but the issue, what you just said, is there's no enforcement on that. Like, so raw can just be thrown on anything. Yeah. You can say grade A, USD grade A honey, and that's supposed to mean something. It talks about, pollen amounts and hydration amount, moisture and all that stuff, but it's not enforced. It's a complaint-based system. And so which
are terrible.
Yeah. You can look at any package and it's all going to say grade A. Why would you put grade B on your honey?
There's not a complaint-based system out there that isn't just rife with people breaking rules in it.
Yeah. Or like lack of any complaints at all.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't know
who would know enough to complain. Right? Beekeepers and us. And now you listeners, now you know too.
Yeah. And they're going to actually go out and test all these themselves, independent, spend money to test them. So USDA, there isn't any kind of definition about like what percentage of corn syrup or rice syrup. And we'll talk about that, these additives.
Yeah.
So USDA just basically has this framework that a lot of beekeepers and honey people would love to see both changed and become more strict.
Yeah. Anybody who's doing it legit wouldn't mind.
I'd like to read a quote from a guy called Honey Traveler. He is a honey enthusiast, beekeeper, all that good stuff.
Feels like you're about to read me a poem.
Once upon a time, in a land far, far close. Quote from Honey Traveler. 2 honeys could be legally graded as grade A honey and be identically labeled as 100% organic clover honey from Arizona, USDA grade A, yet be entirely different honeys. They could be a blend of honeys from all over the world, some heated to 180 degrees to make it easy to filter, contain antibiotics, chemicals, and corn syrup, not made from clover at all, nor actually be from plants in Arizona. And so that label right there, you could have 2 completely different products that have the same label and just doesn't even matter.
Because there's no enforcement.
Yeah, no enforcement at all. And I know you made a noise when I said a certain word on here. And what word was that?
I can't remember now. I got distracted by my phone exploding over here.
Oh, really? Okay.
I got the
issue I have with that.
No, go ahead. I'm fiddling. I'm excited.
I thought we had to pause.
No, I'm excited. I'm grabbing my table here for those of you that can't see me.
He said 100% organic.
Oh yeah, that pissed me off because there is no way to get 100% organic honey in Arizona. Now I think there is in certain locations. Like if you took bees to the middle of the Amazon rainforest, I think, and there is these guys that were doing it on honey barges. They were having barges full of honey going up the Amazon River. And
barges of bees or honey?
Barges of bees. Barges of bees. And they were going up river they would, just kind of dock at some spot for a while and let the bees do their thing. Like, I want that job.
Yeah?
You take the boat up river with like the bees all over it and you're just like hanging out and you're like, okay, bees, this looks like a good spot. Like,
I'm going to pull over and eat some sandwiches.
So that might be one of the possibly only environments in the world with a small enough amount of agriculture going on that bees would have, the 5+ mile radius around the hive to be able to collect nectar from without having to worry about collecting pesticides or whatever.
Yeah. Other than that, organic is You
ain't doing it in Arizona. There's no such thing as organic honey here. You can't, it's impossible. We don't have 5 mile range. We don't have it would have to be, basically 10 square mile, 10 miles by 10 miles. So 100 square miles without any agriculture in it is the propensity that a bee could go from its hive, because that is a 5 mile radius out from either side of the hive. You see my math there.
Yeah, I'm looking at you like with your hands going all over the place. And
I know, I do math with my fingers pointing in different directions.
You're Harry Pottering me over there.
Oh, did it work? Are you in love with me now?
We'll talk about that in our next episode.
So it's really like, it's kind of frustrating when I see the organic thing on stuff, because I think that's one of those where people are just like taking advantage of people who want to eat healthy and possibly have a little bit more money to spend on stuff. If you're a person that is buying organic stuff, like, you're better off than somebody who can't afford organic food. It's more expensive.
Yeah. That is something that comes to my mind all the time, is there's a consumer looking at honey, making a decision on their hard-earned money, and they could walk away with the more expensive honey and have a product that's not as good. And we define good as pure, healthy, whatever definition of good. But they could walk out of there with something that says 100% organic, grade A Arizona honey. And right next to it was something that was like $2 cheaper and was actually better for them, right, in the long run. So that's one of the worries that I think we have towards the consumers, is their knowledge of what's going on. And really, that's why we wanted to get this podcast going, to try to educate even a couple people and send that, that ripple effect out there that you, when you're making a decision on honey, there is a lot more than what the label says.
And it seems like a lot of it was the higher end honey is where the biggest cheaters or whatever are doing it. And why not, right? Like, if you're going to cheat and take the risk, like, you're going to be selling your product for the highest. If I'm going to say raw and it's not raw, well, hell, I might as well say organic, raw, and sourced right from your backyard, and you didn't even freaking know it.
Yeah. And when you can take honey that was made and sold to you for 83 cents a pound and turn around and relabel it and repackage it and sell it for $4 a pound, $5 a pound or higher, then that's what you're going to do.
Oh my gosh, Manuka. You're talking $20 for 8 ounces or something.
Yeah, that's one example of
it was one that was faked a lot.
There was a study, I guess you'd call it. They went basically to Europe and looked at 7 brands of labeled Manuka honey. So Manuka is a honey that comes from a specific plant, the Manuka plant in New Zealand, and little parts of Australia, but mostly New Zealand. Tastes amazing, I've heard. I haven't had any. Have you had any?
I have not ever had any. It's too expensive.
Yeah, real expensive. And so out of those 7 brands that said that it was Manuka honey, guess how many were actually Manuka honey?
1. Was it 1?
It was 1.
Oh, 1's a good number.
1 out of 7. Not when it's how many
not
actual
in this situation.
brands.
Not in this situation.
1 out of 7 Manuka honeys in Europe that they grabbed, and I don't know the details of this study, but that's pretty crazy that it's that prevalent. Or maybe it's not crazy. I don't know. But I want to talk a little bit. I want to kind of hit the rewind button.
Reality is crazier than fiction.
Not my fiction. Wait, what?
You should see the stuff that I write. And now a quick word from our sponsor.
Beelicious. Are your bees looking a little out of shape? Do you wish you could show your bees off around town? Well, now you can with Beelicious. That's right, from the company that brought you bee shoes, you can now strap on a leash and take your bees out and about. Made from 100% we have no idea, bee leashes come in a variety of colors and a variety of sizes as well to fit your bee leash needs. Also, ask for the bee muzzles and bee choke collars for those pesky Africanized bees. Operators are standing by. Actually, just one dude named Joe we hired. But give him a call and put in your order today. Beelicious. Beelicious is not responsible for stings to you and or others. Beelicious may cause broken wings, plucked legs, or decapitation. Beelicious are not approved by Drinking Horn or basically anybody. You probably just shouldn't use Beelicious.
You bastard. Oh, yes, I want some of that. So I want to kind of hit the rewind button and go back and talk about actually like how they fake the honey. Because we're kind of...
Right, we're
Okay, go for it. Don't break my Wu-Tang coffee mug.
I went over the Wu-Tang mug.
Yeah, all right.
How they fake it, because there's a whole number of ways, and it's kind of evolved as the testing capabilities have evolved.
And we need to go back all the way to the very beginning, talking about what the definition of honey is. And there's a specific word that I feel, and a lot of I'm not a beekeeper, but a lot of beekeepers and honey, national associations and stuff feel like should be included in that definition. And that's the word pollen. And so,
right, because if you notice, it was not in the original definition of it.
No, it just said. It just said a sticky, syrupy, substance.
Like, okay, I found this on my shoe.
I
Some
think
gum
a bee
I
made
stepped
it.
in, but it actually fits the definition still.
Yeah, there was a dead bee back there. He must have done that.
It's stuck in the gum.
Yeah. So to include pollen in the definition would do a lot, and why? Well, pollen is found in raw honey. When bees make honey, they also have, pollen all throughout that. And that pollen came from the plants that they collected the nectar from. And so when you have pollen in your honey, train. Choo choo. My train of thought was taken away there.
Nice.
So pollen, when found in honey, number one has... you can say there's not been enough research and not enough evidence, but in my mind and a lot of people's mind, pollen has some great health benefits.
Yes.
Amazing health benefits. A lot of these little, micronutrients and allergen, defense kind of things. You always hear about eat local honey because it has the local pollen, and your body will then be able to not have an allergic reaction, all that good stuff. But also,
which all goes back to your gut bacteria.
Yeah, you keep trying to talk about bacteria here.
I know, I love them.
Why don't you make a bacteria podcast?
Ooh.
So not only pollen, but propolis, some other things. It's got some peroxides, antibacterial, all this good stuff. Anyway, you can look up. I'll post some articles on the goodness of pollen. But here's the thing: raw honey has pollen, and if you ultrafilter the honey and take that pollen out, you've basically taken the fingerprints off of that honey.
Yes.
Those countries that are not wanting to get caught. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to take one step back.
I was going to take another step back too.
Yeah. So
on the filtering, and why were they filtering?
Yes. So hold on. I'll take a step back, then you take a step back, then we'll do the hokey pokey, and
you turn yourself around.
And we'll talk about some other random stuff. So the countries that we're concerned with, the country mostly that we're concerned with is China. Mm-hmm. Chinese honey, honey from China, has such issues that the European Union just straight up says no, they don't take it from them
because of a lot of the hormones and stuff. And
so one of the reasons is they just fuck with it a lot. They mess with it a lot. They filter it. They take out things. They dilute it with rice syrups and corn syrups, high fructose corn syrups, beet sugars.
Beet sugar was a big one.
You just said was this antibiotic that they will use while they're keeping bees. Just like you look at the antibiotics of cows, the RSBT that they say we don't use this antibiotic or these
they probably
hormones.
Do anyway.
Actually, sorry, RSBT is a hormone, not an antibiotic. Anyway, this antibiotic, let me look up what it's called. It's got a cool name.
I think it's because I said hormone. I got you into the hormone frame of
mind.
Hormones
going.
They're going.
This antibiotic is called chloramphenicol, and it is a powerful antibiotic used in Chinese honey that can cause a fatal bone marrow disorder.
Nobody wants that.
No, the U.S. doesn't want that. We banned that. Well, we never even really had it, I don't think. But we banned the use of this antibiotic in any kind of food production.
That's pretty impressive because usually the U.S. is pretty slow to ban things.
Yeah, as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
So that's another reason. So they take that pollen out. I needed to talk about that. So Chinese honey, if you take the pollen out of the honey and then you import it into the US and we do our little tests on it, the only real thing, one of the only things we can do with those tests, one of the great things we used to be able to do is we check the pollen. And the pollen can tell us what plants it came from. And then when you get, 3 or 4 or 5 or 50 different plant pollens and you look at what they are, you can tell exactly where that honey came from.
Yeah, we have a pretty big database of what pollens should be located in what honeys from what area. There is a beautiful database built on that.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It is to me. If you're a nerdy number guy, it's beautiful.
Gorgeous. So that pollen in the definition of real honey is something that I would love to see, because not only is it good for you health-wise, but it's a safeguard towards other countries or other entities or places
and
filtering
if you added
it down.
The word pollen into it, they couldn't bring that stuff into the country even. It wouldn't matter if it came out of Thailand or wherever, that they're sub-shipping it through.
Yeah. Let's talk about that too. But yeah, you're right. Even if they could, though, bring it in, then maybe it's graded something different.
Grade F.
Like they say, grade. Yeah, give them an F.
Give them
and
an
then
F.
you know what'll happen? The consumer will vote with their dollars.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Well, and that's that's part of the problem, right? Like if nobody's tasted a real strawberry in forever, then you don't remember what a real strawberry tastes like, and you think that softball-sized thing that you buy at the grocery store is a strawberry. Like nobody knows, and eventually it passes over. And the same thing's happening with honey to all of us, like right now, where they're trying to pass off things to us, and if we don't do anything about it, you know what my kids are going to think is honey? Honey syrup.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be this. Yeah, high fructose corn syrup is going to be what we think honey is.
Yeah, with air quotes around the honey, or real quotes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about that definition of pollen and why that's important. And they are, so these countries, I'm just going to say China because that's really who it is.
It's the biggest one.
Yeah, they will take the honey, they will heat it to these, over 100-degree temperatures so that it can easily be filtered.
Or 160 plus.
Yeah.
Like you're burning it.
Yeah. Yeah, raising that temperature up to make it super liquidy, so then they filter it, and then they can dilute it down with other any other sweeteners, so like high fructose corn syrup, rice syrup, beet syrup, all that stuff we talked about, and then they will then not be able to bring it to the U.S. without paying huge tariffs,
right,
because they're China and it's Chinese good. So the workaround that you mentioned a second ago is to sell it to another country, a broker basically. And this is pretty much all done illegally. They send it to that country. That country will then repackage it, sometimes put absolute falsities on customs.
Yeah.
These are illegal things that are getting through. And then
customs is a lot more simple than you think it is.
Yeah. You think it's like super lockdown kind of stuff.
Yeah. There's no like dudes in suits.
Yeah. Yeah. So they'll take that, they'll send it over to us, US, with the label country of origin of, say, Vietnam or India,
right,
these countries that we don't have these tariffs on, or don't have import bans on.
Because we put huge tariffs on honey back in, I'm going to guess the number wrong. It's in the 2000s. It's relatively...
Honeygate. Are you talking about Honeygate?
Yeah, 2013.
Before that.
It was even before
I think
that.
It was... when it was Honeygate, I was just looking at it.
Well, so part of the filtering, they will strip out both the pollen as well as, whatever sort of antibiotics or everything else that's in there. The original purpose of the filtering, I believe, was to strip out all of those antibiotics and all of the other little bits that are in there. And then once we were able to start identifying honey by the pollen that is within it, then they started refining that filtering further to make sure that they were stripping out all of the pollen and everything else and removing the fingerprints off that honey.
Here's what's wild. Some of them will then put the fingerprints back in. They'll take pollen from another region and add it in there so that it will be detected as coming from, say, India, even though it wasn't. They just threw in just enough of their honey to make it seem like it came from that area.
Or even doing that with the corn syrup, with straight up corn syrup and adding pollen to it. Getting the right color and then adding pollen to it, getting right color and viscosity and then adding pollen to it and saying, no, this is honey.
No, totally honey.
Yeah.
Yo, bro, this is totally honey.
They do have the NMR. I don't know if we want to get into like the testing of some of this stuff quite yet.
Sure.
So this is like one of the newest testing methods. It's being used for like the last 5 years or so, and it's called NMR, and it is nuclear magnetic resonance imaging. And it basically does, like, instead of having to take and identify individual pollen grains and figure out what plant they came from, this imaging is everything creates, I'm going to use a word because I don't know fully the understanding of this, but basically like when you image something using this, it creates an aura, you could say, and every pollen type from different plants, so on and so forth, carries its own individual aura. And so what they're doing is using this to see auras just to be able to process stuff faster. But there's currently only one laboratory in the U.S. that does this stuff. So the amount of honey that's being tested that's coming into the country, you're talking less than 1%.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a start though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you got to start from zero and it's slightly above that. So yeah, no, it is. And like, this is not me dissing on those guys by any means. Like they're doing everything they can. They need more support in this. They need more public understanding. They need more public support.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that arms race that you talked about. We come up with a way of testing it, a little bit better, and then they come up with ways of hiding it a little better. And then we come up with ways of testing it. They come up with ways of hiding it. So it's a little bit of a back and forth. And eventually, I feel like those kind of things lead to a give up on, one side or the other. So
they do, and it unfortunately seems like the give up right now is not on the right side.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because the money needs to be there enough to fight the money that they're making, and this is a lot. This is millions and millions of dollars that's being made on this fake honey.
Millions.
Yeah, you
like
think
so much that it disrupts the market.
Oh, hugely, and pretty recently too. So yeah, you want to talk about that?
I was segueing. I was laying it down for you right there.
Yeah. So the prices of honey that you see in the store have actually gone down in the market, and it is highly, highly, highly due to this cheap fake honey that's coming in. And so if you can imagine if a bottle is sitting next to another bottle, and one bottle is, like I said before, like super cheap, let's just say like, $2 for this bottle of honey, the cute little bear. Oh. And then right next to it is a local beekeeper's honey, or even local as far as like region, just like, real deal honey. And instead of $2, this one's like $5, $6. You're going to buy that cheaper one. And what that, you talk about disrupting the market, that is a huge hit to beekeepers as far as honey production is concerned. They cannot even come close to competing with something that's 50%.
Who can compete with corn syrup?
Yeah. When it's subsidized.
Look at our
by
grocery stores. Who can compete with corn? Nobody. That's the answer.
That's an interesting kind of thing too. Is government? They subsidize and aka give money to farmers to grow corn because you can make corn syrup out of it and make
Which
all
is
these
part
products.
of why corn syrup is in everything is because it's so damn cheap.
Yeah, and so that's actually interesting to think that government subsidies are actually harming the bees, but then there'll be government agencies and programs now, ELAP, which actually give beekeepers money for their losses. Yeah. So it's like punching someone in the gut and then giving them an ibuprofen or something like that, or something like that.
All on your tax dollar.
Yeah. So this market is definitely disrupted. Beekeepers, in fact, last year, it was either last year or 2018,
2019,
passed a threshold to where they are now making more money on their pollinating services than they are on their honey.
It accompanied at the same time when that was going over. The winter after that is when we lost 40% of commercial beehives due to colony collapse.
Yeah. So that's a big hit on a big hit. Yeah. Yeah. Take the bee numbers down, work harder, and now your honey is... you have to sell it to the store or to the packager for less than it costs you to make it,
which is crazy, right? Like the fact that and that's always been like a goal of Drinking Horn is like we want to see honey worth its money, right? Is we really would like to see beekeepers being able to do nothing but raise bees and make honey and not have to do all the pollination stuff. not being forced into it. A lot of times with small business, you're forced to pivot and move if you want to keep your business alive. And as with any small business, like, you have to increase revenue or just to keep the same revenue you got, you have to pivot sometimes and make changes with it. And we would love to, bees are an absolutely vital pollinator, but we would love to see honey be worth its money, just all by itself. We would love to see that change back because it's a healthy change.
Yeah. And it's an addition. It's not like there's 100% water in a bucket and 50% of it. It's not like it shifted 40-60. The honey dropped off. It's not because there is a rise in pollination needs, but not that much. And so if what you just said could be true and we could really value our honey from the beekeepers, then think about, and something that's amazed me is how hard beekeepers and how much work they have to do. I didn't realize that. I'm like, oh, what a life. You just go out there and you're like, hi bees, and you check on them, and like, then you go back inside and sip your lemonade. But no, it's an up before dawn, down before dusk kind of thing. Or
it's like farming
after dusk.
Yeah. It's a hard living.
And now it's load up your bees and drive them across sometimes multiple states, or take a huge hit and hire a freight company. But how amazing would it be if we valued the honey from those beekeepers where that pressure wasn't on them to where they had to all of a sudden leave their family for, a month, 2 months to do this drive, to take their bees, to, do this hustle.
And the health of the bees, right? As you bring all these bees from all over the place all together, and they're sharing, bacteria. They're sharing flowers together. They don't even know that other bee. He's in there in the flower with them. They're rubbing up against them. They're picking up his mites. They're picking up, whatever else is on that bee, right? And then they're bringing it back to their hive. Like if they're spreading those things around, that's even worse for the bees, right? So then you're basically like, I think everybody can understand that now more than ever, where more interaction means more spread of disease. It's super basic.
Yeah, we know that now for sure.
Yeah, most of us.
Yeah, so it is the health of the bees as well. We've seen bees that go to the almond trees down in California come back with some issues with other diseases or like kind of worn out kind of syndromes, I think.
Yeah, that's always what Dennis has said. That's our beekeeper. And he always says that they come back from there just haggard, basically. Like, it's a long trip and you're going out there and you're moving them all around and like, bees are like us. We don't like to be like moved around against our will.
No, think about the vibrations of that trip might be doing. I don't know.
Oh my gosh,
who knows? Yeah. But yeah, so so it was just crazy to me that the last year or two, beekeepers are now making more money on pollinating services than honey, and like to see that change. So,
yeah, and I think making that change is going to be implementing more systems to be able to catch this kind of stuff. I think one of the biggest things with the faked honey was like, it's so hard to tell where it actually came from as far as just looking at the label on the bottle and it says made in USA. It doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. Like, I hate to say that, but like, unless you know your beekeeper, you cannot trust that bottle to be truthful about anything that it's saying.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line of it. Is like, unless you know the beekeeper, you cannot trust that bottle.
Yeah. And I think that is the bottom line. And
buy local.
If they're, well, man, you just right where I wanted to go with this.
Crushed.
Is there any other specifics you want to talk about until we tell people what they can do?
Yeah, I think there's just a few that like I just kind of wanted to point out. I have just a few like specifics. And I think we need to go over Honeygate actually. You want to hit Honeygate first and then I'll hit February 2013.
You do Honeygate because I don't know really anything about it.
Damn it. I was really hoping you looked up more on that because I honestly don't know a whole lot about it either. One of the instances that I found just of one of the earlier ones, not as early as that, but it was February 2013. The Justice Department charged 2 honey importers. And remember, this is what we were talking about earlier, is it's people importing it that like could be the concern with some of this stuff. So it's not your local honey keeper. It's big business once again. Anyway, so charged 2 honey importers, Honey Solutions and Grobe Farms, Groeb, that did exactly what we talked about earlier. And it was honey that was basically made in China with all kinds of nasty whatever, and then shipped into, I think, at least 4 different countries, Thailand being one of them, and then shipped into the U.S. And that was done primarily to avoid tariffs. So in the interactions that they had just for, I don't know over what period the charges were, but they were avoiding somewhere in the realm of $180 million in shipping duties to customs.
Yeah. Yeah.
200 million, just a little penny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty little penny to avoid.
Small loan of $200 million.
Yeah. Yeah. Honeygate.
Yeah.
And it's still going on. Like, that's the thing is like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, well, it's such a big deal. We'll call it Honeygate, but yet it's happening.
I don't know why we call everything gate. Like, I understand the initial reference and everything, but like for real,
we once had
40
something
years later
back in the brewery called Burrito Gate.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was Taco Gate.
You're not allowed to talk about that in public though, right?
No, I can't taco about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, it's
big
huge.
Business.
Big business, big money. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just runs deep, and you can kind of see how this is sort of this like circle of a problem, right? And it's crazy because with all of this, with the increase in fake honey, it's becoming more and more prevalent, unfortunately, over time. We're also seeing a huge increase in people wanting to buy honey, right? So the whole honey industry in the last 4 years has gone up some 50% or something like that. Mostly due to Drinking Horn buying up all the honey. But like, I mean, it's gone up a huge amount, and instead of it just helping produce more bees, produce more beekeepers, produce more local jobs, it's people getting in on the game that are faking honey.
God, that sucks.
Yeah.
Hey, buy this product, use this product. It's really healthy and it's helping save. The bees are in trouble. Oh, I'm doing good. Let me grab this little bear. And like, you just don't know that it's actually saying like, man, try this new health elixir. It's called high fructose corn syrup. You're
right.
like, what?
And there's no, regulation
really
by complaint only. And it's just such a frustrating problem. And that's what we're hoping like this podcast does though, is it gets it out to people and people start learning about this. People start complaining about it. It takes people doing stuff to make changes.
You're taking away my outro, Evan.
Oh, zing. Sorry.
No.
We can edit that to the end.
No.
Copy paste.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. It does. It just grinds me. And yeah, I want people to hear this and start to be interested enough to click on the links that I've got all up on the show notes. I've got videos up there. I've got an article, a great article that actually I used a lot by Larry Olmsted. He wrote a book called Real Food, Fake Food, and he was generous enough to put basically the entire excerpt from his book about the honeybees, the fake honey, onto a Forbes article. So I've got that linked up. So hopefully this discussion will have you right now, if you're by your computer, not if you're in your car, driving or anything like that. But
be safe, folks.
Yeah, click some of these links and learn about it. Yeah.
It's a quote that I got from you, and maybe it's yours. You can take full credit. Why not?
Sure.
It was something about like eat real food, basically.
Yeah, it's probably, I'd love to take credit for the quote that I'm about to say, but it's Michael Pollan.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Eat food, not too much, eat food, mostly plants, not too much. And the eat food is very important. It's talking about like what food
like
is.
Real food,
because a lot of stuff that we eat, that some of us eat, me included, is not really food. It's edible food-like substances.
Dude, you and I just chowed down some fast food burgers.
No, we didn't. Why are you calling me out like that, bro? I just ate an organic spinach salad with almonds and cranberries.
Hey, man, I can't always eat organic, but if it comes to honey, you got to draw your boundaries.
Yeah. You just said organic.
Oh.
So yeah, eat food, most plants, not too much, but yeah, it comes down to real food. The high fructose corn syrup is a problem, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Fake honey, funny laundering.
Honey.
So anything else on your list over there you want to delve into?
I don't know if we covered the part we talked about how you can physically see pollen being from a different location than the honey says it's from. Chemically, you can use tests that will pick up the antibiotics or whatever else, pesticides a lot of times in a lot of honeys. and then but picking up the heat, we talked about it and why heating is bad and how it's done and why it's also a moderate amount of heat is essential in beekeeping. But it produces a very specific compound. And that's what's measured to measure, like, you can measure it in the age of honey. Were we off air when we were talking about that, or was that on?
The Maillard reactions?
Yeah.
It was the beginning of this episode.
Okay. But the whole, like,
try
aging,
cranberry mead.
Yeah, shoot,
It'll
real
make
good.
for a lovely evening.
It's good stuff.
We think.
I kind of remember it as being a good evening.
We did, but you didn't actually mention that part right there about it producing a certain chemical that can be detected.
Right, and so that's what it does, whether it's like acid over time or whether it's heat or whether it's like, that'll leave some remnants. But like it produces what's called an HMF, and it's a 5-hydroxymethylfurfural.
Hermesfera.
Yeah, hydroxymethylfurfural.
HMF in my family is Her Majesty female. And,
Yeah. Well, all praise the Queen.
Yes.
God save the Queen?
Let's do both.
Yeah, praise, save, something like that.
Yeah, so HMF is a chemical in heating or aging that can be found in honey. And
that's what they measure. Just because we talked about what they measure with a lot of these other things, but like it was a question that I had personally of like, well, how the heck do you measure if it's been heated or not?
Yeah.
So
because it's not still hot when you test it.
Oh yeah, it could be heated then cool back down. You don't know.
So that actually reminds me of this is bonus material.
Bonus.
This is crazy. Last year's 2019.
Stop listening right now if you haven't paid for Drinking Horn Meadcast extras.
Here's me waiting for the check. I don't know
I think they're all in.
Like.
They're all in.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, all 0 of them. It really, really, really reminded me of something that was really, really, really interesting to me. Really. Last year at the International Honey Awards, they actually started testing the honey entries.
Oh, no.
Yeah. 45% of the entries into the International Honey Awards is called something like that. 45% of them were disqualified because of adulterations.
Which could be heat, which could be
pesticides.
Antibiotics, could be pesticides, could be corn syrup, could be faking origins, could be
a plethora of things.
You're talking a competition. That would be like what's the beer version of the Mazer Fest? The
Great
American Beer Festival.
GABF.
And it would be like if you tested the beers at Great American Beer Festival and 45% weren't even freaking beer.
No, or it was like Coors Light with like some other additive added
adulterated
Coors. Yeah, crazy. 45%. Now, get this.
They're fooling all of us.
They took
like right now, like go to the grocery store, buy honey. Yeah. There's like a 50-50 chance that you're getting duped.
There is in the US, it's close to a 70%. Some studies, and I think the numbers fluctuate from 30 to 70, which is a ridiculous
sample
fluctuation.
size. Yeah, sample size.
But some studies saw 70% of honey in the U.S. market is adulterated. So this honey, I want to get back to this competition. They put it out there. That they didn't announce who it was. Who got. Well, I mean, a lot of people already knew. Like if you see them walking out with their heads down, they got disqualified or whatever.
Smear them.
They didn't. What they did is they said anyone who got disqualified could contact them for the reason that they got disqualified. There was a guy on a forum that knew. There's a guy that knew a guy that knew a guy whose dog once was pet by a guy.
Whose taxi driver's cousin
smelled like this one guy.
Oh yeah.
Oh God. But there was something around. I don't know. I don't remember the percentage, but it was a super low number of the entries that got disqualified even contacted. So not only were 45,
they knew it.
Exactly. Not even 45% of them were disqualified. They didn't even worry about contacting because they already knew why they got disqualified.
Dang.
That's messed up.
I wonder about those other ones too.
About the ones
that that did contact him about why they got disqualified.
I know,
I
yeah,
wonder
I
if
wanna see
anybody
that.
got disqualified that was like, what the heck?
This came from my bees in my backyard. So that
Because
brings
your
up
bees
another
could
point.
go over to somebody's field where they are using whatever terrible
Yes.
crap, and then it comes back, and that goes back to the whole organic thing, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm like, unless you know the beekeeper in Brazil that you're getting your honey from, if you're buying organic honey, you're probably getting screwed.
Yeah. So the parameters of how many pesticides or, whatever residue would be very interesting. And they brought that up in the forum too, because it would suck if someone got disqualified because there was a no tolerance kind of thing, and any amount of it
Any
was in there,
ppm,
and it
yeah.
happened to be that their neighbor like sprayed a little bit of Roundup
You
or
get
something
one
like that.
part per million. Well, it's true,
Yeah.
right? When I was a kid, I remember losing 5 hives because somebody sprayed on a windy day and it was blowing the wrong direction. They were just spraying around the outside of their house and whacked all my hives.
Yeah. Hey, we're coming over here. We're taking over. All right? You got nothing to say.
We're gonna blow down your way here in just a minute.
Is that a bat in your hand? Oh, it's Bat Week, or it was Bat Week.
Oh yeah, not that kind of bat though.
No, the
squeaky
flying
kind.
mammal.
Yeah.
The only true flying mammal.
You want to make a podcast about vampire bats? I'm just saying.
There already is one.
Shit.
On Ologies. I just want to plug a podcast that I think is really cool. I've been digging it lately. It's called Ologies.
Yeah,
You would like it a lot.
I like Creature Feature.
Yes,
I'm a big fan.
that's a good one too. Yeah, they do a lot of good fun stuff. They're good. They're good hosts.
They are.
She is just one.
Yeah, just her.
Yeah. So, crap. What was I talking about?
That screwed you.
Just getting back to, you don't know where bees go. I used to teach about this, not in the sense of beekeeping and honey, but in the sense of an evil corporation called Monsanto. People would be
Now owned by Bayer.
People
just
would
so
be-
everybody knows.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, they control the medicine
thought-
and the genetically modified foods.
I was under the
That's
impression.
not good.
Yeah. So a farmer would be sitting there farming his corn. A Monsanto worker would go and spray Roundup on it, and if it didn't die, they would take a sample, test it for genetics, and sue that farmer for having their patented genetics in their corn, when what happened is a bee went from one corn plant
not even with
to
corn.
another.
It doesn't even have to
sorry,
be.
bees.
Wind.
Sorry, wind. Yeah, you're right. Corn is wind pollinated. Wind blows over. It could even be a truck going by.
Totally.
But anyway, you don't know where bees go. It's unfortunate for some of these honey producers.
Oh yeah, no,
if
those
they got
those farmers got
disqualified.
screwed though.
Yeah.
Like they ended up basically getting their whole crop for the year taken away, which like I couldn't imagine what that even feels like. If
more
somebody
than
just
that.
came and stripped out all of our.
Oh no,
they probably got
litigation
sued,
went to
yeah.
huge.
And
People
it's just
would
like
lose everything.
You lose everything because the wind blew in the wrong direction, and you were the one good farmer not fucking bowing down to Monsanto.
Percy.
Yeah.
Percy, I forget his last name. He was kind of a hero going against Monsanto. We're going a little off the rails there.
Yeah.
But all right, we're getting into, we're a little bit past an hour. Just to kind of wrap things up. Honey is undefined. And so that is an issue that we think needs to be dealt with a little more strict, defining honey. One of those big parameters that we want to see changed is the inclusion of pollen. Because pollen can become a fingerprint to tell you where, specifically what region, what country that honey came from. And therefore we can put stricter bans and tariffs on the honey coming in.
And it ain't a fix-all, but it's a good step in the right direction.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll talk about the directions that we would like to see you take as a listener. So these other countries, China mostly, has gotten tariffs put against them and complete bans on their honey product. So they will heat it up to high temperatures, killing nutrients, but allowing them to filter it so much that they can then take out those fingerprints, add anything from rice to beet sugars
And
to high
take out all the
fructose corn syrup,
chemicals.
take out all the good properties, and then dilute it down with any kind of other sweetener and sell it to a broker in another country illegally, and have that broker package it and tell customs sometimes they even put on the packaging or on the freight that it's molasses. And so completely lie to customs and then package and sell it to the US market for like under $1 per pound, which is preposterous.
It's crazy.
And so that will knock that market price so far down that now beekeepers are making more on their pollinating services than their honey. And some will suffer so much that they will probably have to go out of business. This now hurts consumers in 2 different ways. Number one, well, 3 different ways. Number one, you're getting duped. Like you're just straight up getting lied to. Number 2, you're losing the nutritional value that makes honey great in the first place. A lot of times,
might as well just suck on a sugar cube.
Exactly. You might as well, or I think a sugar cube's even better than the high fructose corn syrup that they're using. You might as well just be adding Coca-Cola to
low fructose.
Yeah. So, oh man, that's something we should talk about too, is the chemical and the science of honey. But number 3, you're also potentially getting antibiotics that could be not just harmful, but in some cases fatal.
Yeah.
Fatal bone marrow disease. So all of this comes to you asking, what the hell can I do? Well, you said it in bold caps earlier. The number one thing to do is to buy local.
Buy local. Know your honey keeper.
There you go. Say that one more time.
Know your honey keeper. Yeah, I said honey keeper instead of beekeeper or honey producer. I'm combining them all.
New thing.
Yeah, but know your beekeeper. Yeah. I think that's the best way. If you want to go about getting really good, high quality honey, buy it from your local beekeeper.
And you can find that sometimes on the shelves, or sometimes at farmers market. Just ask. I guarantee you ask at most.
You probably Craigslist that, I bet.
Yeah. You got it. Yeah. Be
discerning, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not bad, honestly. Like if you're really going to be looking for high quality honey, there's nothing wrong with asking a beekeeper a whole lot of questions, seeing if you could go see the hives. Like it's not unreasonable.
Yeah, because people will package them and say this is Arizona honey, and they'll sell it to you, and they haven't even seen a bee.
And there is no legal grounds for them having to actually have that honey from Arizona when they say it's from Arizona.
Yeah. So ask at most 2 or 3 people, and you'll find some honey in your area that is guaranteed to be actual, real, raw, unfiltered, good for you honey. The next step, some people may be saying, well, Evan and Nick, I already do that. What other steps can I take? Listening to this podcast, educating yourselves on some of the links, or doing your own education, your own research on some of these issues, and then sharing that information with whoever wants to listen. If you are sitting in the kitchen with a friend and drinking on some tea, and you see that they're putting honey in it, start that conversation. Or better yet, what we would love for you to do is to share this episode on, your social media streams, or with whoever, send it to someone.
Get people aware.
Yeah. Get people aware of it. Educate yourself, and therefore educate, and then take the next step and educate others. Another thing that I would kind of love to have happen, and I haven't done it, but I think I might do it later today, is to support the American Honey Producers Association. This national association they're honey producers, they're beekeepers, they're honey producers that are so dedicated that they are a platform in Washington to get a couple of things passed. I'll link a video to an explanation of what they do.
They're one of the ones doing the big push for pollen in the definition, aren't they?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. They want to see a definition from the USDA that is very strict on what honey is. None of this grade A, B, C baloney that's unenforced. Yeah. They also put together and push the ELAP, which is paying beekeepers for their losses. They've done,
which is good, but which is also tricky. I know our beekeeper got screwed on it this last go around. There was some other piece of paper that he was supposed to file, despite the one that they told him he was supposed to file. And
we got to get him
Paperwork's hard. Paperwork's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, so go on to American Honey Producers Association. I'll set a link up there. They have a Patreon account. Throw them some money if you are so inclined. They do hard work. They pay. I mean, they pay their own way to go on these trips to Washington and do all this stuff for beekeepers and honey producers.
It is good. And I bashed complaint-based systems earlier, and one of the benefits of a complaint-based system is that if there's enough of you out there listening to this, you can go make a change. You can get in there and you can complain and you can make a change. One voice is not a lot, but if we all just think of ourselves as one voice, we would never get anything done. And if we can all get together and do something as a whole, we could change things.
Absolutely. Become a swarm.
Swarm life.
The buzz of one bee may not be enough, but a swarm.
Oh, man.
Super loud.
I've got so many t-shirts I'm thinking of right now.
Yeah. So if there's nothing else,
I think that's it. That's
at least for now.
The upside is, if you're afraid of bad honey, go to your local bee producer and you fix that thing in a snap.
Yep, and I'm looking at one right now. Actually, I have it in my hand, Mountaintop Honey. That's where we get our honey from, Dennis Arp. I've met the man. I've shaken his hand. I've seen his operations.
You've been stung by the bees.
I've been stung by a bee. And so, yeah, seek out your local honey producers. If you're in the Arizona area, you can find Mountaintop Honey. Farmers market's great, all that good stuff. Anyway, so important, super dear to our hearts. If you want to support real honey, but also get a little buzz on, then go grab a bottle of Drinking Horn Mead.
There you go.
You know what? Grab 2.
Yeah.
Get a 6-pack.
Get a 6-pack. It's a holiday season. You're going to be drinking a lot, and you want to share the love of mead with everyone.
Share the love, share the buzz.
Yeah. Thank you, folks. We appreciate you out there.
Yeah. Right on. Well, thanks for another great episode, Evan. And let's go get ready for our Viking zombie march.
Yeah.
Sweet. Do, 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 do. All you need is love. Do, 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 do. All you need is... Brought to you by Bing. Bing. Oh.